Sir, this card's not valid for premium lounges. You need to leave, or I'll call security. The words landed like a slap, public, sharp, and laced with the smugness of someone who'd never been told no. The man behind the counter didn't whisper. He didn't lower his voice. He said it loud, deliberately loud, so everyone in the airport lounge could hear. Heads turned, brows lifted. A few chuckled behind hands clutching designer briefcases. Across from him, standing quietly and completely still, was an elderly black man. His beard was neatly trimmed, his blazer pressed. In his hand, a USSAA Platinum Military Rewards card. He wasn't causing trouble. He wasn't shouting. He had simply walked up to the front desk of the Pacific Sky Lounge at Gate C-17 and asked if his card gave him access. That was it. But the man behind the desk, Jordan McCall, mid-30s, gelled hair, corporate name tag, didn't like what he saw. Not the card, the man. The old man looked ordinary, like someone's grandfather, the kind who eats alone at diners and still folds his napkin. His shoes weren't designer, his bag wasn't leather, and he didn't belong here. "You heard me," Jordan said again, louder this time. "There's a general boarding area down the concourse." He still hadn't spoken. His name was Samuel Royce, 80 years old, former Master Sergeant, served 3 tours in Vietnam, 1 in the Gulf, and survived a roadside ambush in Fallujah at age 59 during a classified advisor mission. Now, he simply looked at the young man in front of him, not with anger, not with fear, just with the tired steadiness of someone who'd been spoken to like this before, many times, in many uniforms. Jordan leaned closer. "If you don't move, I will call airport security. You're making guests uncomfortable." A couple in first class watched, pretending not to. A flight attendant nearby turned slightly and said nothing. And still, Samuel Royce said nothing. It had been a long morning. He'd flown overnight from Kansas City to LAX and was connecting to Portland. Not for business, not for vacation, but for a funeral. His godson, Captain Martin Cho, 32, U.S. Air Force, had died in a training accident, and Sam had promised his mother he'd be there. He had paid for the ticket himself, didn't ask the military to cover it, didn't ask the family for help. He never did. That wasn't his way. What he didn't expect was this: to be turned away not because the card didn't work, it did, but because the man holding it didn't look right. "You know what this card is?" Jordan added mockingly, tapping the counter. "It's a base-tier military promotional thing. It's not for the premium experience." He smirked, tossed the card back across the counter like it was a scratch-off coupon from a gas station. And then he said it. "You want a real seat in here, old man? Try serving in a real war." A gasp, sharp, collective, escaped someone nearby. A mother with a toddler quickly turned away. Even a TSA officer at the coffee machine looked up. But still, Samuel Royce said nothing. His hand hovered over the card. Not to pick it up, just to rest on it, like it meant something more than plastic. And it did. That card had been mailed to him 10 years ago with a note. For those who served not to be seen, but to hold the line when no one else would. He remembered that line more than the benefits. Jordan picked up the phone. "Security, gate C-17. We've got a loiterer refusing to leave the lounge check-in desk, possibly agitated. Could be an issue." It wasn't just disrespect now. It was erasure. And still, Sam didn't raise his voice. He looked up, not at Jordan, but past him, at the wall behind the desk, an ad screen cycling through ads, a smiling soldier in uniform, proud partner of America's heroes, an image of a folded flag, a slogan, "Service Matters." The irony made his stomach tighten. He slowly took his card and turned. No words, no argument, no scene. He walked back to the seats outside the lounge, those cheap, plastic airport chairs bolted to the floor. Sat down quietly, pulled out a photo from his breast pocket. It was faded. 4 soldiers, 1967. Khe-Sanh, dirt and blood and a makeshift radio. He ran his finger across the top edge, not with nostalgia, but with grief. 20 minutes passed. Security never came. But someone else did. A man in a dark gray flight captain's uniform, bars on his shoulders, a veteran's pin just beneath his name tag. He walked straight through the lounge, didn't stop at the desk, walked up to Samuel Royce. "Sergeant Royce?" he asked, eyes scanning his face. Sam looked up, surprised. "I'm Captain Owen Parker," he said quietly. "I believe you served with my uncle, Lieutenant Harold Parker, 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry, 1969. You saved his life." Sam blinked. I remember that name." "So do I. He never stopped talking about you. Even after the Alzheimer's took his words, he'd still mumble, 'Royce, Royce, Radio Man.'" He took a breath. "Would you come with me, sir?" Sam asked, "Why?" "Because no one who kept our boys alive is going to sit outside while men with brochures pretend to understand honor." The glass doors to the Pacific Sky Lounge slid open with a hiss, and silence followed like a shadow. Everyone inside paused. Conversations halted mid-sentence. A spoon clinked too loudly against porcelain. Jordan McCall, still behind the desk, glanced up, expecting security. Instead, it was Captain Owen Parker, in full airline uniform, flanked by 2 flight attendants. Behind them, slowly but with unmistakable presence, walked Samuel Royce. And though the old man didn't make a sound, the room somehow felt louder with him in it. Jordan straightened, masking the tightness in his chest with corporate cheer. "Can I help you, Captain?" Parker didn't answer right away. He turned to Royce. "Would you like to sit down, sir?" Royce gave a soft nod. Parker guided him to the best seat in the lounge, one of those wide, winged chairs by the window overlooking the tarmac. Then Parker turned back toward the front desk. His face had changed. No longer soft, no longer pleasant. Dead calm, military calm. He approached Jordan slowly, pulled a folded paper from his inner blazer pocket, and laid it on the desk. It was a Department of Defense verification form bearing Samuel Royce's full military record. 3 tours, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star, commendations from CENTCOM and MACV, and a letter of recognition from a former Joint Chiefs Chairman. Jordan stared. "You denied this man access to a lounge that proudly displays photos of soldiers while turning away the real ones," Parker said quietly. I didn't know. He didn't say anything. He didn't explain." "He didn't need to," Parker interrupted. "You didn't ask." The front row of guests, businessmen with laptops, a woman reading The Economist, 2 couples sipping wine, were now all watching with uncomfortable stillness. Parker turned toward the room. "I want to be very clear. You all saw what happened earlier. And what you just saw, this correction, is the bare minimum." He paused. "But what's coming next? That's going to be different." Someone in the back raised a phone to record. Parker sharply turned. "You'll want to turn those cameras off." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Out on the concourse, buzz was already building. A member of the Honor Flight Foundation, a woman named Lisa, had been nearby when Samuel Royce was pushed aside. She'd recognized him immediately from an old memorial wall photo in D.C. And she had posted a single tweet. "Just watched a retired master sergeant get denied entry into the Pacific Sky Lounge. Man served in 3 wars. Card was legit. They said he didn't look like he belonged. Hashtag honor matters." Back in the lounge, Parker returned to Royce's side. "Sir, would you like to board your flight early?" "I'm fine waiting. Don't want to be a bother." "You're not a bother, sir. You're the reason this whole damn airport exists." Across the room, Jordan's voice cracked slightly. "Captain, I didn't mean to disrespect him. There's protocol, certain levels of cards, different access. Don't give me the brochure lines, Parker snapped. You know what you did. You made a judgment based on appearance, not policy. He paused. Did you even read the name on his card? Jordan's lips parted, then shut, because he hadn't, not once. Outside the lounge, a quiet ripple moved down the terminal. 2 TSA officers approached, not to detain, but to stand watch by the entrance. Not as a threat, but as a sign, this space is being corrected. A young gate agent who had once served in the Air Force Reserves arrived and offered Royce a flag pin. He refused, gently, then took her hand and said, "Just keep looking after the next guy. That's enough." And then another ripple. A man in a dark blue blazer with 4 small stars on his lapel walked down the concourse. Passengers stepped aside. It was General Walter Teen, retired Chief of Staff of the Air Force. He didn't speak to anyone. He walked straight into the lounge, saw Royce, and saluted. Long, firm, with tears in his eyes. "It's an honor, Sergeant," he said. Samuel Royce, slowly, painfully, stood from his seat, returned the salute, and the whole lounge, every single person, rose to their feet. No one had to be told. The moment demanded it. Later that day, the lounge posted a statement. Too little, too late. It was corporate, safe, sanitized. But it was drowned out by the video, the one a bystander had filmed anyway, of Parker speaking, of the general saluting, of Royce standing tall with a hand trembling but proud. And in the background, the screen that once showed ads now glowed with a single image. Samuel Royce, Master Sergeant retired. 3 wars, 4 decades, countless lives saved. Service is not a uniform, it's a lifetime. The video had crossed 1 million views by morning. Not the airline statement, not the corporate apology. The video. The one where an old man slowly stood, saluted, and the room rose with him. The one where a general bowed his head to a forgotten warrior. News outlets picked it up. Lounge denies war hero entry. Retired Master Sergeant Samuel Royce refused service until a general walked in. How America almost forgot one of its own. And underneath every article, one comment rose to the top. This isn't just about one man. It's about how we treat all of them. At Pacific Sky corporate headquarters in Dallas, Texas, the emergency boardroom meeting was already into its 2nd hour. Margaret Linton, VP of PR, looked exhausted. She clicked through a slide deck that was getting more brutal with each transition. Over 52,000 negative tweets, 42 major press outlets have covered it. 10 veterans organizations have called for a boycott, and our stock has dropped 8.3% since market open. The CEO, Paul Hanover, rubbed his temples. Damage control? Margaret shook her head. This isn't damage control anymore. It's identity crisis. We got caught disrespecting a decorated war hero on camera on Veterans Day weekend. He turned to another executive. Legal? A gray-haired man named Alvarez cleared his throat. We've already been contacted by Royce's family. They're not suing yet, but their attorney says they're watching. Paul leaned back in his chair. So what's our move? Margaret hesitated, then said, "We don't do damage control, we do justice." Meanwhile, in a quiet house outside Spokane, Samuel Royce sat in his kitchen table. Same table where he used to fix radios, help neighbors fill out VA forms, and read books by sunlight. Now that same table was covered with letters. Thousands, from every state. Some were handwritten by children, some typed by former soldiers. One envelope had a single folded sheet inside that read, "You carried us, now let us carry you." His eyes welled up. Across the table, his daughter Maria wiped a tear from her cheek. "Dad, they're asking if you'll fly to D.C." For what? There's going to be a ceremony. They want you to speak. They want to apologize, publicly. He stared down at the words again. A child's crayon letter. A woman's typed note. My husband didn't make it back, but you being seen, that matters to all of us. I don't want attention, he muttered. You're not taking it for you, Maria said softly. You're taking it for every name we don't read out loud. The next day, the CEO of Pacific Sky flew to Spokane himself. He didn't bring press, no cameras, just him and a manila folder. He knocked on Royce's door like a man knocking on history. Royce opened it slowly. Paul Hanover extended his hand. Mr. Royce, I came to apologize, in person. Royce looked at the folder. What's that? Paul hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a document, a formal agreement from Pacific Sky Airlines. It declared a new internal policy, permanently granting free lifetime access to all premium lounges for any honorably discharged veteran, no membership card required, just a DD-214, and it would be named after Royce, the Royce Standard. Royce didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Why now?" Paul answered honestly, "Because we messed up, and because the world saw us mess up. But some mistakes are a gift, if they lead to a truth." Royce took the folder, ran a hand over the paper. "It's a start," he said. The following week, a dedication ceremony was held at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Flight crews, military families, veterans, and 100 passengers gathered by the Pacific Sky Lounge. Royce didn't speak at first. He stood by a bronze plaque being unveiled. It read, "The Royce Standard, because no service should be forgotten, because dignity isn't earned by clothes or age, because a nation that forgets its defenders will lose itself." Then, as the crowd fell silent, he stepped up to the microphone. "I'm not special," he began, his voice gravel but strong. "I just didn't stop showing up. That's what service is." He looked over the crowd. "My first assignment was in '65. I came back in '73. Nobody shook my hand at the airport. That's fine. We didn't expect it. But I swore that if I ever saw someone left behind again, I'd stand for them." He turned to the CEO, to the gate agents, to the travelers watching through glass. "I forgive you, but don't forget me. Don't forget the next guy." Online, the story evolved again, from rage to resolve. Veterans began posting their own lounge access denials. Some had been turned away, others had never tried. Now they were showing up, and lounges were opening. The hashtag Royce Standard began trending. Veterans' wives shared it. College students posted tributes. Even rival airlines adopted it. The Department of Transportation announced a proposal, a veteran access bill modeled after Royce's case, ensuring nationwide protections for veteran travelers. Back in Spokane, Royce sat again at that same kitchen table, only now a shadow box hung on the wall behind him. Inside, his medals, his patch, and a new card, Pacific Sky Royce Standard Lifetime Access, framed next to a quote etched in brass. "Dignity isn't granted, it's remembered." "You changed something, Mr. Royce." That's what the young woman said to him, trembling as she reached out for a photo. It was 3 weeks after the plaque ceremony. They were in Chicago at an event hosted by Veterans United Foundation, a nonprofit that had just renamed their new assistance center the Royce Resource Hub. Her name was Casey, 29, daughter of a Vietnam vet who never made it home. She held out a worn Polaroid. "This is the last picture of my dad, taken in '71 before he shipped out." Royce looked down. A man in uniform, barely more than a boy. "He looked like he could have been my son," Royce whispered. Casey nodded. "He never got welcome back. But what you did, it's like it reached backward through time, like someone finally said, 'We see him now.'" Royce didn't know what to say. He just hugged her. And he kept hugging people like her, at airports, at VFW halls, in grocery stores. Everywhere he went, people came up to him, not to thank him, but to say they'd felt forgotten until now. Back at Pacific Sky headquarters, Margaret Linton's office looked more like a military strategy center than a PR department. Wall-sized maps, pins on locations, documents from regional managers. We have over 3,200 confirmed veterans using the Royce Standard Access in the last 10 days. Most of them never stepped foot in a lounge before. Some cried, some didn't say a word, just sat down, stared at the wall, and whispered, "Finally." The CEO leaned forward. "And?" She smiled, holding up a chart. Customer loyalty up, Net Promoter Scores up, employee morale highest in 5 years. Then she paused. But that's not the point. That's just the echo. The real impact is something else. Paul raised an eyebrow. What? She clicked to a photo. It showed a lounge receptionist helping an elderly black man into a recliner, gently placing his bag beside him. Her hands were soft. His eyes were wet. Margaret's voice lowered. This isn't about optics anymore. It's about repair. Meanwhile, the Royce Act passed its first reading in Congress. Veterans groups lobbied for it. Civil rights organizations supported it. Even corporate giants who'd once turned people like Royce away now endorsed it. The bill was simple. Any public or private travel space offering premium or VIP access must include a clear, dignified path for veterans. Refusals based on appearance, absence of membership cards, or discriminatory language would trigger penalties. A hotline would be created to log veteran discrimination in travel services. And most importantly, a national register of veteran access points so no one would feel like they didn't belong. News anchors debated it. Some called it overreach, others called it overdue. But every night when Royce turned on the TV, he didn't hear his name. He heard other names, people he hadn't seen in decades. Soldiers, brothers, sisters. One by one, their faces showed up in tributes. Their kids spoke. Their wives cried. Their units remembered. His face wasn't the story anymore. And he was fine with that. One morning, Royce received an unexpected package. No return address. Inside was a stack of printed-out emails, dozens of them. Each one started with the line from the same woman. I used to work the lounge desk at Portland International. It was her, the woman who had tried to push him away. But the emails weren't just hers. They were hers forwarding letters she had received since, from veterans, from family members, from strangers. One said, "You gave him the chance to be more than just a story. You gave him the world's ear. Now it's your turn to listen." At the bottom of the package was a single note, handwritten. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm working at a VA help center now, because you reminded me what service really means." Royce folded the letter carefully. He didn't need revenge. He needed reminders. The last airport he visited that year was Reagan National in D.C. They were unveiling a second Royce plaque, this time built into the wall, next to a new security lane marked Veteran Priority Access, No Membership Needed. As he stood there, a young security officer approached him. "Sir, I don't mean to intrude, but I signed up last week, Air Force." Royce smiled. "Congratulations, son. I did it because of you. I didn't mean to inspire anything. But you did, because you didn't yell, you didn't protest, you just stood tall and let the world trip over its own reflection." They stood together a while in silence. Then the officer saluted. Royce returned it, just once. Later that night, back in his hotel, Royce sat by the window overlooking the Potomac River. He turned off the lights. The city glowed. His phone buzzed. A message from Maria. "Dad, the bill passed. Senate just confirmed. 82-18. The Royce Act is real." He didn't reply right away. He just looked out at the water and whispered one sentence to himself, barely audible in the quiet. "Now they all have a place to sit." It was just a bench. At least that's what most people thought when they walked past it, tucked away at the edge of Terminal B in Reagan National Airport. No plaque, no name, no fanfare. But every now and then someone would stop and sit and exhale like they'd finally arrived somewhere they didn't have to explain themselves. It was Samuel Royce who had asked for it. Not a statue, not a hall named after him, just a place. A place that told no story, but held all of them. 3 years had passed since the lounge incident, as the media once called it. Royce had declined nearly every interview after the Royce Act was signed. He hadn't given speeches or stood behind podiums. He hadn't published a book. He didn't sign any deals. When asked why, he said, "Because the story's not mine anymore. I just held the door open." But others kept telling it. Veterans organizations across the country adopted no membership needed campaigns. More than 800 lounges nationwide implemented automatic access systems tied to military service records. Private airports followed, bus stations, train depots. Even banks restructured their customer access tiers because of one man who stood still long enough to be noticed. At the National Museum of Service in St. Louis, a new exhibit opened, "The Places They Were Told to Leave." It displayed a folded VFW application form with the word "denied" stamped across it in 1969. A diner napkin with "We don't serve your kind" scrawled across it. A digital kiosk from a travel lounge frozen on the screen, "Access denied, membership required." And finally, a photograph, blown up to full wall size, of Samuel Royce standing at the Pacific Sky desk. He wasn't angry, he wasn't loud, he was just present. That was the lesson. On his last public appearance, Royce visited a small high school in Arkansas. They'd invited him to speak at their Veterans Day assembly. He didn't come for the stage. He came because they'd named their new student veteran support room Royce's Corner. A modest gesture, but he showed up. He walked slowly now. Age had settled deep into his knees and spine, but his voice hadn't lost its firmness. He stood before the students, looked across the auditorium, and said, "I'm not here because I changed the world. I'm here because I asked one question. Are you sure this is the world you want to leave as is?" Silence filled the room. Then thunderous applause. But he had already stepped down by then, sitting quietly next to a young Marine in full dress blues. Royce died in his sleep on a rainy Tuesday morning. He was 89. No media outlet broke the story right away. There were no hashtags, no breaking news segments, just a few quiet emails between people who had known. Then a ripple. Then a wave. 3 days later, airports across the country held a moment of silence at noon. No announcement, no music, just quiet. Even the loudspeaker systems fell still. At Terminal B, Reagan National Airport, passengers instinctively turned to that bench, and many sat, and many cried. He was buried in Section 60 at Arlington. No gold casket, no horse-drawn carriage, just the way he wanted. On his headstone, one sentence: "No one was ever invisible in my presence." It became a motto, not for a movement, but for an ethic, a creed. His daughter Maria, now a civil rights lawyer, started the Royce Initiative, which offered scholarships for veterans entering law and public policy. Its mission was clear: to protect what we've learned the hard way, to never make someone prove their worth with silence. In its first year, it funded 112 students. One of them, a black Air Force pilot named Darian, said at the opening ceremony, "They say Mr. Royce never raised his voice,
But that's not true. He just raised ours. And the bench? Eventually, someone tried to add a plaque. Maria refused. She visited it once a year, always alone. She sat down, watched, listened, and left behind a folded card, no words, just his old military ID photo, one corner worn down by decades in his wallet. No caption, no explanation. But airport janitors started collecting the cards people left behind. Dozens, hundreds. They framed them in the staff room, called it the Wall of the Quiet Ones. 10 years later, a little boy pointed at the bench and asked his father, "Who was he?" And the father replied, "Someone who made space for people no one else saw."